How do you go about kind of choosing between which clients you're going to sign? Obviously, as I'm sure, and as you touched on a little bit, you can't really take on, 50 different guys when you really started your own agency and doing a small thing. So what's your process of kind of either targeting clients that you want to go after or choosing different players that may come to you and whether or not you're going to represent them?
Yeah. So each kind of level of the sport, I think, is kind of a different process. So when it comes to, your amateur guys, so we can even start at high school because there could be guys that I represent in high school for the draft.
Yeah, that's right.
How I approach them are going to be different than how I approach a professional guy. So, with high school and those younger guys, that main process is going to be very family oriented. You're going to be talking to their parents. You're going to be, conducting business on that front. And I have had high school guys that I had phone calls with their dads or their parents, and there were certain things that I was like, okay, this isn't going to work out for you and I, whether it was because of the parent or because of, a lot of it has to do with outside things from that standpoint when it comes to high school, because most of the time, if I'm having a conversation with a high school player, they're legit. I'm not going to waste time on a high school player that's going to be drafted. But there are things that I may not want to be involved in when it comes to that. Is their parent crazy in the stands, or, have they made a lot of scouts, or, your kind of Perfect Game, Team USA, those type of people, have they made them mad? I interned for Perfect Game years ago, so I have connections there as well that I'll kind of bounce players off of when it comes to that. And then with college, prior to NIL, there really wasn't a process for that. Now, NIL has completely changed the game of how we go about scouting and recruiting, because if you sign a player for NIL in college and you do a good job and you get them paid and you get the marketing deals, 9 times out of 10, you will continue that professional relationship into their professional career. Right. And so that is kind of something that you almost have to start thinking about the professional side while they're in college, when in the past that, wasn't a thing. And so, being able to look at kind of them in college as solely from the marketing standpoint, though, because you aren't signing players in college to represent them professionally. You can't. That's against NCAA rules. You are signing them as their marketing agent. And obviously you can be seen as like an advisor for the draft or down the road, but you are solely representing them based off of who they are as a person. Obviously, when you have players that are good and their stats are phenomenal and they get these awards, they're going to be easier to market, of course. But you have guys that have built a social media following that may not be, your starting whoever. They may be 3rd or 4th string, or they may be hurt. I have, players that didn't even play this year, but have gotten a ton of marketing deals because they have, 20,000 followers on TikTok and things like that. And so looking at high school guys in that way is very, very different when I'm choosing who to represent and who to help when it comes to NIL, because also, I've found a lot of success in representing players that are at schools in states that don't have a lot of competition. So like I said, you get certified by the state. So Mississippi, you have Ole Miss in Mississippi State. Obviously you have smaller schools like Southern Miss and things like that, but compare Mississippi or even Arkansas, for example. Arkansas is the only big school in the state of Arkansas. So every single brand and company and mom and pop shop is putting all of their money into the University of Arkansas. Whereas Texas, you have Texas Tech, Texas, Baylor, TCU, Texas State. You have so many big schools and your fan base is divided. You may live in Lubbock, but you may have kids that go to UT. That is something that I then realized was like, okay, to be successful also isn't just about the player, it's about the state and who you're going to be working with. Now, not saying that those brands and companies that are in that player state is the only, people that I would reach out to, because that's not true. I could reach out to, anyone across the country or the world, but I at least have seen a lot of success in partnering with those smaller companies, those smaller, brands. At Arkansas, I worked with, you know, a local nutrition shop and got all the players that I represented to, you know, kind of build their own drink and smoothie coined after their name, and they got a percentage of what they made off of it. I partnered with a local jeweler, and one of our players, his last name was Turner, and he coined the name Turner Time. You know, every time he got on base, he pointed at his wrist. We made him a watch, and he sold it as Turner Time. You know, all those things where, you know, you kind of think outside of the box and partner with those types of companies is then I think what makes the NIL side of things and who I choose to represent very kind of beneficial and successful. And it also makes it a little bit easier when you can look at a player and it's like, okay, yes or no, do you want to post on social media? Yeah. That's like a big thing. Because I had even a professional guy before straight up tell me, he was like, I don't care what brands come to me. I don't want to post on social media. I don't want to market anything. I just want to play baseball and that's it. Yep. Okay. Like that's totally fine. But then you are going to approach them and kind of their career way differently than you're going to post someone that wants, you know, 10 different brand deals and has a huge following on social media. So the college side is very much more looking at the player as who they are, not on the field. Where then when you start to get into then representing them in the draft and going through that process of whether they'll be out of eligibility after this year or are wanting to go through the draft process with, you know, whether or not they may go back to school, you know, then that is way different from then the side of, okay, are we going to, you know, market them in a way that's going to get them seen from scouts? Are we going to market them in a way that's going to, you know, reach out to teams? But, you know, we can't directly do that at that point if they still have eligibility. So it's a very gray area from the college to the draft part of who I'm going to represent and what, you know, I'm going to be able to even do when it comes to that, because we obviously are kind of handcuffed in the sense from the NCAA when it comes to eligibility. And then once you go through the draft process and then into minor league and major league ball, like that side of it is then solely performance based for the most part. Now you may have some players that can get a lot of really good brand deals or some good marketing opportunities that I can obviously then take a commission off of. However, most brands on then that side aren't going to give deals to players that aren't good. You know, you're not going to have your players that have been released 5 times and played on 10 different teams and have gone from, you know, indie ball to this to, you know, the Mexican League to then back here. You know, those players are way more difficult to kind of build that reputation with the MLB. And so that is something that I have kind of had to pick and choose of from an even like a little bit more difficult standpoint, because, you know, I understand that professional baseball are these guys' careers. You know, that is how they make money. That is how they live. And so obviously, as just a human, I want to help them any way that I can. But there does, you know, come a point where you have to have some tough conversations with them where it's like, okay, you know, you are 28 years old and you've only gotten to high A, and even given now that the new minor league CBA, you know, increased pay, which is great, but teams don't like paying their players. They don't want to pay any more than what they have to. So when you are, you know, reaching what they would consider more your older guys, you know, they're not going to pay a 28-year-old in high A. That's a waste of their money. And so I have a lot of indie ball guys and even kind of some like free agents, minor league free agents who reach out to me quite often. And, you know, that is something that I have to kind of put up this hard type of demeanor when it comes to those conversations, that I can't just say yes and try to help them out, because odds that it happens is probably very slim. And it's just the reality of it. It's the reality of professional sports, but like I said, even more so now with the new minor league CBA. And so that part of it is kind of the unglamorous, the not fun part. You know, I never want to turn someone down. I want to help out everyone. I want to make everyone successful. But like I said, it's just me, and I, you know, don't have the time and energy and money to put out for people on the professional side that I don't see becoming more of a paying client. So like when we say paying client, you know, the guys that are going to reach arbitration and free agency, where I will then, you know, that's why I do what I do, is for those contracts. You know, I'm not doing what I do for minor league contracts. I'm not making anything off of minor league guys. So the process of choosing is definitely, like I said, different given the level and the type of player that they are. But all of it just kind of comes down to, you know, the success of it and the mold of your morals and values. And are you going to get along? Do you believe the same way? Are you going to butt heads with every single marketing deal you come up with because y'all don't agree? And it's funny to say this, but a lot of it makes me think of like a relationship, because you are around them all the time. You are managing their life. You are, you know, even, you know, your older guys, your relationship with their family, their girlfriend, their wives, their spouses, their kids. Like, if they don't like you, the player isn't going to like you. Or, you know, if you are having to find housing for your player and their girlfriend and their dogs, or if you're having to, you know, all of those things that we do on a day-to-day life, you're managing them 24/7. So if y'all's morals and values don't align from the beginning, it's not going to be fun, nor is it probably going to be successful.
Yeah,